Donna Kaid, yeah, I made a video to you about that suicide note thing, and then it got deleted, which I just can't use auto upload it. It's annoying. Makes me want to go very quickly, because some of the things are just like, blah, blah, blah. You know, don't worry. There's no reason to be self-conscious. I read lots of nutty stuff. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying about giving the guy some credit of at least committing suicide. On the other hand, he did it in public, so yeah. I think there's still some obvious truth there that he missed in his writing, even though I've only read like 30, 50 pages of it, which is that you can't escape the personal meaning. And that's basically what it comes down to. These issues you're talking about are interesting, and I've seen these raised many ways. So, you know, they are the fundamental conclusions going back to Pyrrhonistic relativism and skepticism, rather, and relativism in general. And there's always a problem with this word arbitrary because, you know, for example, every human language has a word for water, I believe. It's always something different. So it's arbitrary what it is. But in cognitive science, they have a good term, because I've used this term arbitrary just to mean that you can choose it. It doesn't mean you don't have a reason. And yet the word arbitrary, of course, is saying that, you know, it discounts the reason because the reason doesn't matter. But in cognitive science, they're calling these kinds of things motivated. Why? Because the concept and word for water is somewhat arbitrary, but it's going to relate to similar phenomena, and it's going to relate to the experiences. So the sounds and metaphors and the way people think of water are going to be affected by, was there a village for thousands of years on a coastline or in a desert? And so these factors are going to motivate them. The sound they come up with might be because of some sound they heard at the water over years and years, or something more abstract and hard to follow, but there's going to be some neurological motivation, if only the fact that, well, their neurons were shaped this way, so this sound came out at the right moment for them to think, let's use it as a word for water. You know, it's not important that I say exactly how words are invented. We don't know exactly, but the point is there's some reasons there, but it branches. Okay, so the arbitrariness has to do with more the lack of an entire determinism. That it's not just one way that it can be, that the word for water could be all the words we know, and it's arbitrary, it could be many other words, but it's motivated. Okay, now this is basically, I think, what has created the postmodern era. This is the transmodern moment. From modernism to postmodernism is this idea that, oh, meaning can only be personal at most. And since this is a hangover of people that believed in objective certainty, they're like, well, then that's not meaning. But if they really convert fully to relativistic epistemologies, then you're going to have relative truth. You're not going to look for absolute truth. What is absolute truth? Truth that I could say is truer than anything without even knowing what the other thing is. No, you can't do that. You have relative truth. So there is no loss of meaning if it's just personal meaning. Now, somebody like the suicide note guy is not accepting that. It's like, well, personal meaning just isn't good enough. My standards are so high. I wanted that stuff, the meaning that I felt, to be universal. And it's just, but it feels the same. It does the same for you. It is the same as always. You've just discovered that it's not absolutely universal. But let's say you have a high standard and you say, well, I'd rather believe in nothing than just this personal perspective from the fact that I grew up on the ocean and not the desert. I don't want to like artichokes because I grew up in California and was exposed to them. I don't want to dislike Leehmore because I didn't grow up in Hawaii. You can't escape your personal bias and your personal meaning. I guarantee you there was some personal meaning involved with that guy walking onto the Harvard campus and killing himself. You cannot escape personal meaning, except for by death. And he doesn't seem to have acknowledged this. Now, I will say that his work doesn't come across so whiny and misspelled and lunatic as most of these kinds of works do. But I do see a side. Maybe I'm projecting it in, but I do see this subtle screed that is more rational than normal for them, but it still comes onto this entirely, area of denial of the fact that you can't escape personal meaning. You might as well create an epistemology from personal meaning, including what the personal meaning is of what other people say and relate to you. You might as well do that, because whether you think that was good enough, you can't not do that, right? You can either have a bad system for understanding and dealing with personal meaning, which will make you greedy and stupid, probably, in my opinion, or you can get a better system. There is no, well, I'm just not going to make a system if it has to be that kind of system. No, you have to. You have to. You cannot live on this earth without doing that. Now, he took himself off of this earth, but he still did it in a way that showed it up to his moment of death. That was the case. Now, he also made a video about Jung that I didn't finish, and then I was going to watch it home. Seems to have disappeared. Sort of a foul title, so maybe you thought better of it, or maybe YouTube did. I'm curious about that.